Coming to you from the Safe Space Studios, I'm Brodor, and this is a Why We Game editorial report. Litigiousness and conspiracy theories. Those are two of my favorite flavors to blend together. And the Ernie Gygax saga with TSR has provided two delicious doses. If you're unfamiliar with the saga, there's a link to my previous video below there that you can follow and get caught up. But ultimately, the latest development is the withdrawal and proclamation of refiling of a lawsuit from TSR leveled against Wizards of the Coast that makes allegations of trademark violation, libel, and slander. But it also demands that Wizards of the Coast remove from what is referred to as legacy product a legacy disclaimer. But we'll get to the legacy disclaimer in a minute. The two avenues that I really wanted to explore were first the rumors that there was an active campaign that was driven by people at Wizards of the Coast to destroy Ernie Gygax via social media. Now, I don't think that there's any evidence to support this claim. You may look at Ernie's cancellation last year as being evidence. I don't know. But here's what I can tell you, is that I don't think that there is any evidence, certainly that I can't find, and certainly that has not been brought to my attention, that there was actively a group of people at Wizards of the Coast who was asking a community of keyboard warriors to do their bidding. I think more likely is that there was someone who saw what Ernie said or gestured in that video, didn't like it, and, you know, they made a stink. And that's really what the internet is, right? You're seeing it more and more on both sides of the political aisle, where people are using the cancel cudgel on both sides pretty actively, and I think that's what happened. I don't think Wizards of the Coast was behind it. Frankly, I don't think Wizards of the Coast gives a shit about TSR. I don't think that their content is a threat. I don't think that what they're bringing, that level of nostalgia back to the hobby, is something that the current or next generation of Dungeons and Dragons caretakers really cares about. It's just not a concern. Now, do I think Ernie was being bullied? Yeah, I think that people like to pile on, and I think people like to be superior, and I think that people get a charge out of feeling the power of another person's removal from the public square. The other aspect that was intriguing to me was the Indiegogo campaign, in which TSR was trying to raise money for the aforementioned lawsuit. Now, it was a small number of people at 124. They raised just south of $6,000, which was 11% of their $50,000 goal. But the video that accompanies the campaign was interesting because at the time, CEO Justin Lanasa talks about some very specific issues and the reasons that they want to raise this money for the lawsuit. Now, what I found completely lacking was any discussion of trademark violation. And more so, it really focused on the legacy disclaimer that WotC was adding to older content that was deemed by Mr. Lanasa to paint the creators and fans of that content in a negative light. If you'll allow me, I would love to read that disclaimer. We recognize that some of the legacy content available on this website does not reflect the values of the Dungeons & Dragons franchise today. Some older content may reflect ethnic, racial, and gender prejudice that were commonplace in American society at the time. These descriptions were wrong then, and they're wrong now. This content is presented as it originally was created, because to do otherwise would be the same as claiming these prejudices never existed. Dungeons & Dragons teaches that diversity is strength, and we strive to make our D&D products as welcoming and inclusive as possible. This part of our work will never end. Now, What's interesting is they said some of the product may reflect. So it doesn't even say specifically what is offensive. It does not say what content, what books, etc. It sounds to me more like a cover your ass sort of situation where we want to, as a business, satisfy both ends of the market. We want one end of the market to recognize, yes, we're aware that this content may be problematic. And we want the other side of the market to realize that, yes, this content that may be problematic is still available because some of you want to consume it. That's really what I think that this is about. I don't think it has anything to do with them hating art or those artists. But I think that Mr. Lanassa's comments are intriguing because he talks about how TSR makes art and how their product is intended to be consumed and appreciated as art, but then immediately makes the allegation that Wizards of the Coast is against artistic freedom and suppresses it, which I thought, well, fuck, isn't that slander? Mr. Lanassa also alleges that Wizards of the Coast doesn't care about a certain segment of fans, and I think he's right. There is a portion of the community that they don't give a shit about. I think there's 124 of them, in addition to, whoever supported but not financially contribute to that particular Indiegogo campaign. Those people aren't WotC's market, right? Even if they walk away, which I suspect that the majority of people who claim they're going to walk away don't, but even if they did, they are inconsequential relative to the number of people who will support Wizards of the Coast for things like the legacy disclaimer. You're just outnumbered. Now, as far as threats of violence against family members and people that work at TSR, dude, that fucking licks. It's not right. You should not threaten violence against people with whom you disagree politically or have a difference of opinion. It's not right. Now, I call bullshit on the whole conspiracy theory thing. I think that on both sides of any issue, there are a small number of people who are really excited and get off on the fact that they can make a stink. And I think that's really what occurred. But it got me wondering about diversity and the diversity discussion in the industry. And I've had some great interviews recently on Why We Game that are in the can and yet to be released. And I'm afraid, actually, I'm not afraid. I suspect that I am going to offend people on both sides of an issue. And that seems to be kind of who I am, but I think that I have an obligation to the audience, but also to myself, to be honest about what I think and my perspective. In fact, these are called the editorial reports, and I'm not always going to have the answers, but I hopefully will ask some provocative questions. And this whole Ernie Gygax slander, lawsuit, cancellation issue really got me to wondering about diversity in the industry, in the hobby. Not just a diversity of life experience and what makes us come, our racial backgrounds, but a diversity of thought. Is there a space in the gaming arena, personally and professionally, for people with whom you disagree? The royal you, of course, not you specifically or me. And I started to ponder some questions, and I'm just wondering, is there a place in the hobby for people who are religious and who only believe in two genders?